Hi, Steph.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. This is Melissa Grace. Melissa Grace is a dream interpretation coach. Melissa Grace is a dream interpretation coach and intuitive reader. She's been a Jungian-oriented dream worker and intuitive reader since 2007 and brings more than 20 years of experience in the healing arts to her work. So we're super excited to have you. We've been talking dreams pretty much all week here.
Oh.
And let's just get started with, how did you even get started with this work?
When I was 31, I just decided that I was interested in figuring more out about my dreams. And I had gone through a lot of therapy already, but I was going through some particularly rocky relationship stuff. So, and having these wild dreams. And so I found a Jungian-oriented therapist to work with. And I walked into her office on the first day and she asked me, she just told me to bring a dream. She didn't ask me anything about my history or anything. She just said, bring a dream. So I did, and one of the aspects of that dream was a tree, and she had me imagine myself as the tree, and this amazing feeling came over me, and I just felt so solid and grounded immediately, just imagining myself as this tree, as it was in my dream, and that was the beginning. That was the beginning. I was hooked after that, and I had other experiences with her where I had a dream about a really beautiful sunset, and I kind of imagined myself in the sunset, and I had this full-on sort of experience of non-duality, just dwelling in that sunset. And so I realized that maybe more than guided visualizations, though those are powerful, that working with my images were particularly potent for me. They had particular power that was just for me. And then working with other people's images over the years, I realized their images are particularly powerful for them. So that's how I got started. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and pop your questions in as we go for sure. And I'm curious, for those of us who haven't really encountered Carl Jung since college, tell us a little bit more about, like, what is Jungian?
Yeah. What is Jungian, right? Okay. So Jungian psychology, or depth psychology, is about making the unconscious conscious. That is like the focus of this psychology. So, and Jung had, he had a way of working that, and it's through dreams that we figure that out. It's one of the main ways we figure that out. Also through synchronicities, but a lot of Jungian concepts are actually pretty mainstream now, like the idea of the shadow, and the idea of what calls your soul, and the archetypal imageries like the mandala and the self. And so Jung had this idea that more than trying to achieve like our ideals about our life, that experiencing wholeness was really, that's sort of the crux of his work, is experiencing wholeness, and that we did that by looking at our unconscious and looking at the shadow and integrating those pieces of us that we're not necessarily aware of in our conscious minds, but still live inside of us. Is that good enough? I mean, it's like I tried to.
Oh my gosh. So, was something that you talked about, even like when you had this psychologist and she said to you, like, kind of be the tree, and then you had this non-duality. It reminds me a lot of something that I've encountered a lot more recently and really am diving with, which is the quantum field. And some of what you're talking about too, it's interesting because I do intuitive work. And when I do this work, these things come up. Like, it's been so long since I've studied Carl Jung, I'm like, I forget. But these things that are like the archetypes, and just this idea you know, of not being separate sometimes. So it's just so interesting. I just had never really, I don't know, put it together that our dreams are, our dreams are almost like those intuitive reads too. It's, I mean,
Exactly.
yeah. So look, if you're someone who wants to kind of get to know your dreams better, where would one start?
That's really good. But can I comment just a little bit on the quantum field and
Yeah,
its
by all means. Yeah, go
okay.
ahead. Yeah.
Okay. So I think it's true that, you know, because I'm a mystic, and part of why I was drawn to Jungian work is because it gave me an intellectual framework for my mystical experiences. Like, it helped me to understand, like, Jung was a mystic, and um, it helped me yet that yes, the consciousness is like the quantum field, these archetypal energies, um, you know, that are things that we can touch and feel, but then we can also become overwhelmed by them sometimes, or these energies. Give me an intellectual framework for my mystical experiences. Oh, I'm just hearing myself. I just heard myself there. Okay, all right.
Sorry, no, I made a mistake.
Okay, all right. Okay, um, so anyway, yes, you know, doing intuitive work, you are tapping into a lot of times the unconscious and and archetypal energies and things of that nature. So, okay, to go back to your question about
Yeah, so
about how somebody could start working with their dreams. Yeah.
yeah, and then I want to start diving into, for those who are here, ask your questions. I mean, this is amazing, I think, having a dream worker with us. And so I'm starting to see some questions pop up. I know we're going to have a few different questions, even about for those who don't dream. But my first question is, oh, well, let me ask you this first. Can you define mystic?
Ah, that's
Melissa?
a really good question. I think that's a great question, and I have actually never really entertained that question before, but I think I'm going to give it a shot. I think for me, a mystic is somebody who experiences non-ordinary reality, or experiences or is in touch with the unseen, and understands that there's more beyond the physical body, and has a felt experience of it. Like, it's not just a belief, but a felt experience of it, and
Yeah.
is able to connect with those non-ordinary states of consciousness.
Yeah, yeah. Erica says she was told she was a mystic when she was in her 20s. I mean, I think about like the Sufi mystics, like Rumi. To me, they really had a lot of kind of quantum field, universal consciousness knowledge. Like they knew that big picture kind of umbrella, those things greater than ourselves.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a question of just how you perceive it. You know, I think Jung perceived things. I mean, he had like major shakedown, like psychic break experiences, you know, like he kind of lost it there for a while. And well, there's controversy about whether or not he lost it, but some people think he did, right? You know, when he was writing the Red Book, which is basically this big journal, um, where he was processing his dream images and these visions he would have, and it kind of formed the basis of a psychology. So anyway, I think for him, it was through his intellect that he processed those things. But sometimes, a lot of times, mystics just feel, and you know, they're in touch with, and they feel, and they, you know, they go into an ecstatic state, or um, without necessarily feeling the need to process it intellectually. But I think for those of us in the West, the need to have a container for our mystical experiences is it's something, it's helpful for living in our culture.
Yeah,
And also for staying connected to body and mind, you know, and having a more cohesive sense of self, you
yeah.
know.
Well, okay, so I'm going to ask my question and then I want to dive into some of these dreams. So the question is, what was the question? So if someone wanted to begin to perhaps even interpret their own dreams, like for
Mhm.
instance, um, certain dreams that I have that might be recurrent, or I'm talking about like for me, for instance, or certain dreams that I know are clearly about an anxiety, or
Mhm.
sometimes like certain dreams that might involve like a past boyfriend or whatever, any of these things, whatever they may be. How can we begin to perhaps decipher them more for ourselves? Like, do you have any sort of beginner's tips?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Well, I think one of the foundational theories, of Jungian psychology is that a lot of what we dream about is a part of ourselves. This isn't always true. Sometimes what we, there is actually an external thing we're dreaming about. But, when it comes to ex-boyfriends, that wild animal that's chasing you, or the people who are chasing you down the street, or that that these can be parts of ourselves. So one way to work with that is to write down what you attribute to an image. The different, like, I would take out the key things that pop out at you. What pops out at you from a dream is important, is
Yeah.
finding the most compelling thing, or the most several compelling things, and then writing down what those what your associations are with those characters or images, and then seeing how they relate to each other, like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like a blanket is something to cover something, and I see this, my old writing teacher from college, and when I think of her, I think of somebody who was really enthusiastic about my writing. um, so I feel, and then I would like think, how does this character feel under the blanket? Does she feel constricted? Does she feel comforted? If she feels constricted, how, am I keeping my creativity under wraps somehow?
Mm-hmm.
Or if she feels comforted, is there a way that I'm really attending to my creativity that's really comforting to me right now? So, like, things of that. Does that give you an idea?
Yeah, that's great. It's like a really nice way just to kind of get started and see, what's the theme, what's on repeat, how do you feel about that situation? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it helps a lot.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I want to dive in. This is kind
right.
of like why we're here. This is like what the juice is. So we're going to start with Alicia. She says she has had many dreams over the last couple of weeks where people are telling her that she's fat. She also dreamed that her friend had cancer, and
Mm-hmm.
she knew she was dying. The friend was dying because Alicia saw her mother when she looked at her. Does that make sense when I say it that way?
So her friend was dying of cancer, and she knew she was dying because when she saw her friend turned into her mother.
It was like she saw, yes, and her mother died of cancer.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the well, there's two things there. So the fat part, I mean, it's always hard to know without actually like interacting with someone, because dream work is a very interactive process. But I'll just throw some ideas out there.
Yeah.
So if you take the idea that people who are calling you fat are yourself, are there ways that you are giving yourself, negative messages about your body, or are behaving, negatively towards yourself in some way? The mother dreaming that your friend has died of cancer, um, that could be many things. If the friend, it's, what is it, the dreamer associates with the friend would be really important in this case. But for instance, I mean, if the friend had a mothering sense to her, if she was a particular friend who kind of was a sort of that mothered her, and there was something happening, so you could do it in internal or external, that there might be some aspect of herself that is dying, and not in a way that she wants it to. Or there could be a way that her friendship is changing with this person, and it feels like something is dying, or she may be afraid of losing this friend in some way. or whatever this friend represents to her too, you know.
Yeah, can I take a step further maybe?
Yeah.
Like, okay, trust me, like I'm not, what I'm curious is, and Alicia, if you're here, feel free to like chime in with any of this, of course, because we're talking about your dreams. But I'm wondering, could it also be like, if I have an aspect, if it were me, and I had an aspect of myself that was sort of dying away. So my friend is dying of cancer, and it's a sense of loss. Like my mother died of cancer. Like I see that overlay. There's
Yes.
a sense of loss. Am I losing some part of myself, even though it's maybe meant to shift? Maybe I'm clearing the path in some way. Like I'm going to mourn the loss of this piece of myself.
Yes, absolutely. Sure. That also could absolutely happen. And an overlay, yes, absolutely. It could be a good thing. That would be entirely up to the dreamer and how, when I do dream work, that the dreamer owns their images. The dreamer is the authority on their images. They get to decide what their images mean. I just offer suggestions.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, that makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and so, Alicia, if you have anything more you want to, comment on that one, feel free to. Is there anything more you want to say on that one in particular, Melissa?
I think I mean, no, I think that's probably as much as I can say without really dialoguing with the dreamer herself.
Yeah, I know. And I know this is sort of like a back and forth kind of.
Yes.
So she is saying, and I know Alicia, so it's easier for me to like find this interpretation, but she's saying she is releasing old versions of herself.
There you go. Well, then that's there you go. Then you have it. But it could be that feels very scary, because if it brings up her mother dying, we form our personalities in relationship to our mothers. So if she's dreaming, of a friend dying and a mother dying, it could be something that is very deep in her psyche that she's letting go of, like a pattern of relating that originated from her mother that maybe she carried over into her friendship with this person that is dying off, or just simply something, knowing what that is would be up to her.
Yeah, and I think even the dream about the people calling her fat would probably, I would imagine, in a sense, be in that same category. It's like even releasing those old versions, and even what you, Alicia, might have said, or if it continues at all, to yourself. Alicia is saying she is accepting that she's gone and she can move on. Her mom walked her dogs.
Okay. I'm not sure what the dogs have something, but if she's accepting she's moved on, that's very important. Yeah, that's really important. It could be, that dream just carries that sense of surrender and maybe a little longing or something that comes with letting go.
Yeah.
The feeling of the dream, the feeling of the images is very important. How a dream feels can give you a really important idea of what it's about. Sometimes when I do dream work, I ask people what the most important image is for them. And sometimes it's not the image that's important, but they have a feeling that's the most important characteristics of the dream. So how she feels about this image of the mother and the friend who are dying of cancer would be very important.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, we're gonna do Josie's. So these totally in the feels. This is good stuff. Okay, so Josie I'm gonna say it in her, this is Josie speaking, okay? Otherwise it's confusing for me. I had a dream recently where I was on a motorcycle with a demon-like figure. I can post a photo of him if you like. Big white eyes with sharp, long teeth, a wide smile. I've never had a dream like that before.
Big wide eyes, sharp teeth. Okay, well, that to me sounds like a shadow, what I would call a shadow figure. again, the associations with that would be important, but sometimes when you get these sort of nightmarish images that come in, like if she were scared of this, maybe she wasn't scared of it. I'm going to assume that she was. That it's helpful to bring in a spiritual friend to contemplate the figure, like something that's strengthening to you, whatever that is, a resource of some kind. To and dialogue with the figure. It can be really interesting what happens when you dialogue, and what I mean by that is going into your imagination, sort of there's a concept called active imagination. So you use your imagination to go into a dream and kind of suss out some of the characters by talking to them, or even reimagining the ending or whatever. Yeah.
Well, let's just back up a little bit, okay? So when you say bring in like a friend, how do you mean? Do you mean like literally talk to a friend about this, or are you saying like in your own mind?
In your own mind. Like, for instance, there's a wonderful book called Dreamscaping that's edited by Stanley Kipner, who it was a major dream researcher. And there's a story in there in a chapter that I can't remember who the author is of that particular chapter, but talks about a woman who had been seriously abused as a child, and she was having these nightmares that were very, very hard for her to confront. And she was a Christian. And so when she imagined herself confronting these scary figures, she remembered Christ. She brought in an image. She imagined Christ standing there with her while she confronted the image. But it doesn't have to be a deity like that. It could be anything. So it's an imagination, to answer your question, I'm talking about imagination.
Got it. Okay. And Josie's saying, I wasn't scared, just more like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then there's a little bit more. She thought it was something related to her mental something. Yeah, this is her friend Heather kind of helping out with what that might have been about. So, but yeah, it sounds like she wasn't fully, but I like that. I like, even if it wasn't scary, maybe even bringing in like someone who is, like just that feel of like, I got someone on my side here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm wondering what's going on in her life. I mean, motorcycles are interesting. They're, like, is she somebody who, is kind of speedy, or has she been running really fast in life? And, but it's, I would say I would ask her to dialogue with that figure, or to see what that figure felt like in herself. I mean, there was one time that I was working with a dream, and I had this image of a man who came, who broke into my house, and I was terrified. But then I did active imagination, and I talked to the figure. I talked to him, and as I was talking to him, he turned into a small little boy who started crying and just wanted to be held. And that is when I learned that my feelings, my emotions could masquerade as invaders or scary figures. So whatever it is we're trying to control or separate from, it can come back in our dreams in a scary way, or in a way that's like, not very appealing to us.
Yeah. She's saying too that this figure looked like a character from a Spider-Man movie, and when she looked up that character's personality traits, it said mentally unstable.
Okay. All right. So then I would ask her, is there a way like that she's trying to not feel mentally unstable right now? If she's like trying really hard to cope, is she really scared of the idea of mental instability? What are her associations of mental instability in her family? Were there mentally unstable people in her family? And is this somehow a representation of her family of origin, and some kind of need to confront it? Or, there are multiple things to do, to say. But I would say, if it were my dream, I'd be like, I would wonder, oh, okay, I'm really scared of feeling mentally unstable, and how is me trying to control my emotions actually backfiring on me?
She has schizophrenics in her family, just saying.
Okay, well then that dream, that figure actually could take on, you could go very deep with it. Like that, her associations with those people in her family,
Yeah, and I just want to mention too, just because you said this earlier, and it's coming to mind right now as you were talking, especially about Jung, and just this idea of, because you talked about maybe him, I don't know, going a bit crazy or mentally unstable or something.
Mhm, mhm,
And I was thinking about how when we get into these like psychic kind of realms or intuitive realms, I think
mhm,
some of what comes through and some of what we even want to do to shift our energy to like the modern quote unquote normal world, it
mhm,
looks crazy. It
mhm.
sounds crazy. And like, for instance, if I were just to go out on the beach, and I mean, I live in a town where people would probably just keep walking,
Mhm,
but if I were to like shout at the ocean, which is like a really great idea,
mhm.
if you're angry, just to go shout at the ocean, or
Yes.
if I were to go like dance on the beach, or if I were to just go and like be chanting in Target, like people would be calling the cops,
Mhm. Yeah.
but I could just be super in tune with what's really good for my frequency, but
Mhm.
it's really not that acceptable. And then at what level does it? I mean, I think we know when it turns into something that isn't stable, it takes like a different tune, but
Well, I think how in control you feel of your
yeah,
behavior is probably a barometer of that.
yeah,
Um, I think when your unconscious is taking you over, you aren't in control anymore. Um, it's one thing to go into Target and start chanting and know full well that you're doing something that other people aren't going to really dig. But
yeah,
you might get some crazy scares and security might come and take you away, but it's another thing to do that and be completely unaware of the fact that that you're doing something that's not socially acceptable.
yeah, exactly. So Josie says she is trying to keep it together, COVID world with two small kids and a husband at
Yeah.
home. Amen to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there you go. I mean, and that's like Marion Woodman is a very famous Jungian analyst who isn't alive anymore, but she has this wonderful saying in her book, Coming Home to Myself, and she says that the more we try to be, the more perfectionism has a hold of us, the more we start dreaming of overflowing toilets.
uh,
So basically, the more, that dreams compensate for, they show us what we are not willing to experience.
yeah,
And
yeah.
the psyche longs for wholeness. The
Mm,
psyche is not happy with a one-sided point of view on anything. It wants us to show, it wants us to see the entire picture. So yes,
ooh,
and
ooh,
yeah.
good question. So
Mhm.
is that why we get triggered by certain people? Like, is it that desire for wholeness?
Well, yeah, yes. I mean, there's a famous quote by Jung that whatever irritates us in others is a is showing us something about ourselves.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
yes, yeah. I mean, and that's one of those, that's an example of how, like, that's kind of that idea that people reflect back to us things that we need to look at in ourselves is something
Yeah,
that has made its way into more kind of alternative spirituality. Most people understand that concept,
yeah.
but he was one of those people who really first put it out there
I
into the.
love Jung. I did not know how much I loved Jung.
Yeah. Yes, yeah.
Okay. So let's see. Eric is saying I have a whole map of places that I return to often in her dreams
Mm.
over many years. It's like a world that I love to travel to, and one is a literal map.
Oh wow, that is
Yeah.
so interesting.
Cool.
um wow, psychic mapping, a psychic map.
She also is the one who said she was called a mystic. Like in her 20s, she was
Oh
called a mystic. And
yeah,
she channels. I mean,
yeah,
she's like a PhD in a lot of psychic type things.
yeah, like in metaphysics. Well, I think that's really interesting, and it feels kind of shamanic to me, the way that shamans map out different worlds that they travel to.
That gives me chills. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have encountered more than once people who are so psychically gifted, who who seem to present as shamans when they start to do their dream work, because I mean, though I know that term is overused, and I have friends who are shamanic practitioners who would not like me saying that. So, but shaman in the sense of somebody who is able to perceive multiple dimensions and work with them consciously.
Yeah, that's Erica.
Yeah.
It's you. Now I'm telling you, Erica, you are. Come on. You are. I know you are. Okay, so let's see. Okay, Abby, I'm curious about the dreams. And hi, Mary Rose. I'm glad you're here. Pop in a dream if you want to, Mary Rose. Okay, Abby, I'm curious about the dreams where my luggage gets messed up during travel, like on another leg of the journey. It's time to change transport, and all my stuff is unpacked, and I miss it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that to me says, okay, I'm trying to get somewhere psychically. I'm trying to go to another, travel. My consciousness wants to go somewhere else, but there's all this baggage, like emotional baggage, that is unpacked. Like I don't really know where it is. So something that's stored in my psyche, because baggage is something that is kind of stored but also portable, so we can actually work with it, carry it from one psychic place to another, is not contained. It's just sort of, it's lost. So I don't know, how to access it. I'm having trouble accessing some psychic, emotional information, maybe something from my past that I need to get from one place to another.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I think that's a good one probably to, I don't know if you want to comment anything about that, Abby, but I like that. I like that as a kind of a question to ponder. Heather, yeah, you're right, Heather. I did miss that question, so thank you. Oh, I'm gonna ask. Abby's saying she likes that. She had a normal nature dream last night. It was fun. Penguins flying.
That's great. Penguins flying.
Heather is asking why she doesn't dream anymore. So she was saying that she used to dream a lot. And I'm curious, Heather, like Heather's had, if it's, I mean, it's probably it's fine if I share. I know you're kind of an open book, but Heather's had some really great transitions recently, like during COVID. So at what point did you used to dream, Heather? And then, at what point did you, she used to dream a lot. Like, I'm just curious, when was that? Like, when did you stop dreaming? Was it like, I don't know, around when you got married, when you had your child? Was it like this last year? I'm just curious, but she's asking like why she doesn't dream anymore, and she used to a lot.
Well, sometimes when we stop dreaming, it's because there's so much going on in our life that for us to work on that we just, there's no, it's like the material that we need to work on is here and now.
That makes complete sense.
Yeah, that it's not, the unconscious doesn't need to show us anything because we're kind of living out all of our issues and working on them. I mean, that could be one reason. Yeah.
She's saying probably after she had her daughter Harper, and Harper is Harper, is she 6? She's 6, right? She used to talk in her sleep all the time. You and me both, Heather. Yeah, I've told Heather. I mean, I also used to like walk in my sleep. I would go and take a shower in my sleep in high school, thinking it was like daytime. And so Heather's saying, didn't you say the absence of dreams means something?
This is a topic I don't know a lot about,
Yeah.
but I don't really think that it does necessarily. I mean, I think when we are, when we're dreaming a lot, it can mean we're very psychically open. And we're psychically open when we have the time and energy to be psychically open, you know, and also when there are really intense experiences, emotional experiences can make us psychically open, transitions of some kinds. I mean, when we're triggered by anything, we can be psychically open. But a mom with a kid is probably experiencing sleep interruptions or not sleeping a lot, and I think those affect whether, you know, how much we remember our dreams, how much we recall our dreams. I think it's more of a question of dream recall than actually you're not dreaming.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that makes a lot of sense. Like when you first have that baby, you're like, if I
yeah,
just even get some sleep, I don't even, whatever.
yeah,
I'm not going
yeah,
to remember much other than when I was awake and when I wasn't awake. And I know, you know, Heather is going through some amazing things, which I think is probably a lot of catharsis. So
mhm.
that makes sense to me doing, oh, she usually sleeps really well. But like, it makes sense to me, you know, if you're doing the work outwardly, that maybe the dreams are like, oh, we're good. We're going to take a step back because you're literally doing it.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And again, I, you know, there's a lot of research on this topic that I don't know a lot about. So if, you know, I would Google dream recall and why am I not dreaming and see what
Yeah.
comes up. But it's
Good old
something
Google, Google, or I'll ask
that
Alexa.
Google is. So I'm sorry, I'm not like I'm a total expert on why people don't
Okay.
dream.
Yeah, we're just
Um,
throwing out whatever to you. So
yeah, yeah.
okay, so we're gonna ask. I think Annette's next. I apologize if I do skip over your question. I'm not trying to, but let me know, just like Heather did.
Mhm.
So Annette's asking. I had some wild dreams this week. The coolest one. My friend wanted me to volunteer at a brain mapping research center. They ended up kidnapping my friend because they realized he used more of his subconscious mind than anyone they had studied. I freed him, but he died from brain damage. Oh my
Oh,
goodness.
interesting.
Yeah.
It
What
freed
are you
him.
going to do with that one? That
He,
is
it
so,
freed him, but he died from brain damage.
yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting. Brain mapping.
That's so
So,
interesting. It's all about like the brain and
yeah, no, I mean, I would wonder what her associations are with brain mapping and but the idea that that it freed him, but he died from brain damage would make me wonder. I mean, if this were my dream, I would wonder, um, am I overdoing it? Am I overdoing like wanting to, you know, delving into the psychic realms, or am I like,
we're afraid of it.
yeah, or I mean, that's also possible too.
I don't know. I'm
Afraid.
not, yeah. I'm not
Well,
trying to
no,
say
I
that
mean,
about you.
afraid of that exploring the subconscious will lead to brain damage. Um, but it's interesting that, you know, this figure, this male figure, she thinks has a subconscious that's more accessible than any of the subjects. So, and it's a male, so it makes me wonder. I mean, a part of depth psychology is this idea that we all have an anima and an animus, which is the feminine and masculine within us, and
Yeah.
and it's interesting because the animus for women can be an intermediary figure that, I mean, it mediates between the consciousness and unconscious, when that means that, so this figure, this male figure, is actually kind of doing that because it is sort of a representation of the subconscious in the dream. And it wants to be explored in a way that will both be freeing and not cause damage. So I
Mm-hmm.
would ask, how can I explore my subconscious in a way that will not cause me damage? What feels safe to me? What
Mm-hmm.
feels safe?
Mm-hmm.
How, how can I make myself feel safe,
Yeah. Yeah.
when it
Yeah. I
comes
come back and maybe I'm imprinting my own experience on this. Well, I'll just, you know, in my experience, when I was first coming into my intuition, I was afraid of it because I knew it was telling me something at the time I didn't want to hear.
yes.
So I don't know. I just that came to mind for me, probably like just processing my own experience.
Well, yeah,
Um,
no, I think that's a really good hit. You know, that maybe there's something that she's afraid will cause damage.
Yeah, like I was afraid, like, well, if I know this and I admit this, which my intuition is like pounding on me,
Yeah.
then for me it was like very scary at the time to think of what was out there that I
Mhm.
didn't already have. Like what I had wasn't what was meant for me, but it felt safe. It felt safe, it felt
Mhm.
secure. So
Mhm.
that's really interesting. I'm really curious for you, Annette, like what your thoughts are around that, just around, your subconscious or your intuition or something that maybe is being shown to you or like made known to you that perhaps like there's, some fear around. Just be curious how that might how that might hit. Yeah, she's saying lots of fear. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
then I would ask her, like, if she imagined this dream, what, what's the first thing that comes to her mind, and what will help me feel safe with that
To
exploration?
help me feel safe. Yeah. And it might be, that dream is helping show like you said, it's like showing the shadow side. It's like, okay, we don't want to look at this during the day. Well, here you go at night.
Yes, yes, yeah. Well, and it's showing, it's expressing a fear that, maybe the conscious mind says I shouldn't be afraid. I shouldn't be afraid of exploring my subconscious. Um, I know it will be freeing, but so why am I afraid? So then the shadow comes in and says, actually, you are afraid, but there's something. And then it's, as a dream worker, it's my job to say, to take it to the step of what will help you feel safe in this. That's sort of part of the power of the message of the dream, is that you, sometimes just being aware of that and acknowledging I am afraid of this exploration is what needs to happen. Just owning it.
Yeah. Perfect. Thank you. Um, okay. I don't know if I said this one already or not. I don't know if I did. Yeah, she's saying fear of the unknown. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's saying fear of the unknown.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. I'm gonna say this. Josie was saying this. She had a dream she was losing everything. She couldn't find her kids. They lost things. She lost her snowboard in the car. It was a disaster. Oh, so yeah, mentally unstable. She was kind of like just reiterating that. That was from before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. Let me go down here. The penguins, we talked about that. Okay, Mary Rose, I see you next here. I have dreams that keep coming. One, I'm holding a baby, but keeps dropping the baby. Eeks! I swear I can hold babies. I know you can. Two, I would dream a family member dying, and I would in a few days, okay. Two, I would dream a family member was dying, and a few days later, a celebrity would. That almost sounds like premonition, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
so that's what
interesting.
I have for Mary Rose. I'm just gonna see, oh, three, I would hear one of my kids saying, Mama. I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that happens to me too. I'm like, did they say that? Like, what is, I
Mm-hmm.
go into them and like, they're just dead asleep. So that's what I see for Mary Rose right now. Yeah.
Well, the holding the baby but dropping it, I mean, babies can, represent a lot of different things. They can represent new beginnings or something that's in its infant form, and a fear that we're going to drop it, kind of like a really intense version of dropping the ball. But uh, it can be our own vulnerabilities and our fear that we can't take care of them, that we can't take care of our inner infants. Um, but yeah, so
Well,
then
let's go. Just. I'm sorry, not to
yeah,
interrupt.
no, no, no. Mm-hmm.
Just with that, with knowing her, I would imagine go. Let's go. If you were to go further with that first one,
Mm-hmm.
what more would you say about that first one you said?
About the new beginnings, or something that's new that we are afraid that we won't be able to take responsibility for.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, some of that can be like, maybe we aren't making enough time for the new beginning, and we are actually dropping the baby. Or maybe there are circumstances that aren't allowing us to really develop something that we want to develop in our lives. um, and we need to a reassurance that we can hold it.
Yeah.
That we can, I mean, holding something psychically is like saying, I can handle this. I
Mhm.
can, I can contain my experience.
So if you were having that dream, is there anything you could do? Like, could you do something like, I don't know, not that you could make yourself dream it, but could you do anything where you were holding the baby. Like let's say it's around a
Oh,
decision, like
absolutely.
you have to, a decision you have to make, and the baby is a decision, for instance, or the baby is like the new gifts that are becoming known to the world. Like,
Yeah,
are there things you could do where you are like seeing yourself holding that baby?
absolutely. That's a wonderful way to work with active imagination, is to reimagine a different outcome.
Yeah.
And in doing that, that can be, that's a way of honoring the dream that helps us feel, it can be a very simple way of resolving something. I mean, that's how I work with kids' dreams sometimes, that they just respond to that reimagine it, and you defeat the monster, and with your magic wand, and all is good. And kids you do that and they're just like, great. But there's a part of us that's like that too, that if we just reimagine it, um in the way that feels better, it can help us resolve what, without even really having to think it through,
Yeah.
whatever it's about.
Yeah, that's great. That's so great. I don't see any more questions right now. Again, if I miss somebody's, Mary Rose says she loves that clarity. Thank you.
Yeah.
If I missed a question, let me know, or if you have another one. Um, this is amazing. I just want to have you.
It's dream work can be pretty wonderful. We go for the aha moments, we go for that sense of, wow, this is amazing, or that sense, because to me, that's when we're really tapping into consciousness, when we're really, um, there those insights that come through. There's a way that just by doing dream work itself, we're opening up to, um, the self, the capital S, like the divine.
What
Um,
about, I'm just really curious, like if our kids are having like a nightmare, do
mhm.
you have any recommendations to help them? Like for instance, my daughter doesn't seem to, but my son occasionally says he'll wake up, he'll call for me, and he's like, oh, I had a bad dream. So I'll just go next to him, rub his back, get him back to sleep. He goes back to sleep really easily. But just curious, like what you might suggest to help them.
Well, I mean, I don't professionally work with children, but I have nieces and nephews, and that I, dreams have such. I mean, kids have such porous beings that if you help them, reimagine the dream, for instance, I remember one time my niece had a dream where some figure was, menacing, a monster came, and I asked her, like, well, what do you think would be, a powerful thing that would make the monster go away? I mean, what if you had like a magic wand or something? She's like, oh yeah, if I have the magic wand. And it's like, well, what would you do with it? She's like, well, I just zap it. And I'm like, and then what happens? It's like, it disappears. Like, great, how do you feel now? I'm not scared anymore. Great. So that it's like very simple things like that. um I think, in all dream work, it's, in a dream with kids, you want to ask questions. There's a really wonderful book about working with kids' dreams called Dream Guider, I believe.
Hmm.
Um, and it's kind of like allowing the kids to unfold the dream imagery themselves, but helping them realize that they have the power, and that, that they can access something if they imagine it. It's like that, bringing in that spiritual friend.
Yeah,
Like, what kind of superpower would you need to fight this being? Can you imagine having that superpower?
yeah.
Can you imagine keeping yourself from, what would you have to do to fall off the ledge? I mean, to keep yourself from falling off the ledge. Or what if you imagined you had wings, and when you fell off the ledge, you flew instead? How
Yeah.
does that feel? Things like that, like using your creativity and their creativity to, imagine a different outcome.
It's really empowering. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, do you have time for two more?
Hmm.
Okay. We could keep you on here all night.
Well, I
um,
love this. I can do this all night. So
we'll do like two more, and then we'll.
okay.
Otherwise, this podcast will be like 5,000 hours long. We'll never sleep again. Let's just keep talking about this stuff. Okay, so got two more. One is my niece had a bad dream. She's 18 and kind of sick. She said she woke up bawling and didn't have any idea why.
Mm. Well, sometimes, the purpose of the dream is the emotional, is the emotional experience we have when we wake up from it. sometimes, like if we're suppressing grief or sadness or loss, that we won't remember the dream. We'll just wake up crying, and that's the point of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if she's going through a hardship, like she's sick, she's dealing with an illness, there's probably grief that accompanies, going through that kind of difficulty, especially at her age.
Yeah, definitely. It's like just allowing for that emotional release. Even,
Yeah,
saying she's kind of sick, maybe it's like an emotional release. It's going to be really helpful.
yeah, exactly. Um,
Yeah. Okay, so the next one, I dreamt I was climbing Annette. I dreamt I was climbing a huge long staircase outside. There were a lot of people climbing. An Indian man was standing in the middle of the staircase. Facing out, he started talking to me very friendly. And I thought, is he interested in me? And then I realized he was waiting for someone looking out, waiting for them to climb the stairs. So I continued climbing the stairs. At the top, I wondered if I would ever date again.
at the top, you wondered if you would ever date again. Wow. Well, that's really interesting. I would need to know what her associations are with with that Indian man, how it felt to her, and Indian men in general. Um, but in general, going up staircases it's like ascending in consciousness, like, um, moving forward, going to, you know, uh, growing, basically growing, in our consciousness. And this man, I mean, I would see that as an inner figure, an inner animus figure. Um, and he's being really friendly to her. So, I would kind of wonder what he wanted, but um, my intuitive sense of that dream is, am I afraid of what will happen if I totally let go and just trust in God? Um, if I will always be alone, or I won't, um, isn't as important as, can I trust myself to feel good, to feel safe and good inside myself. That, I mean, that's just a totally intuitive feeling about that dream. That was not analyzed at all. But I again, it's like that idea that the animus figure mediates between the conscious and the unconscious. And here he is standing in the middle of what, if the bottom of the staircase is the unconscious and the top is the conscious. It's like and also the transcendent, what's called the transcendent function. The transcendent function is our capacity to transcend, to connect to the spirit world, and to our spirituality, and make it conscious and embody it. So if this staircase is going up to a transcendent realm, I mean, maybe there's a way that, she's, wondering, can I don't know. I mean, I kind of have to work with her, but can I touch God and still be available? Um, like, to how, to the earthly world, or am I'd be wondering, how am I unavailable to myself? If I'm wondering if I'm ever gonna date again, I would be wondering, um, am I somehow cutting myself off from something that I want? Or am I, yeah, that's one of those that would take more
Yeah.
exploration.
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think you probably have given some really, really, really good food for thought that I would imagine, Annette, you can take that and kind
Yeah,
of run with some of that.
yeah.
Um, okay, I'm going to ask, oh, interesting, real quick. So Annette's wondering if she should be a chaplain.
Oh, well, see, okay, well then that makes it totally different. So, okay, so then I would say, I would wonder, if that were me, like, I would wonder if I mean, depending on if I'm going to be a chaplain, how available to intimacy I'll be with
Yeah,
not only outer men. I'm assuming she's heterosexual,
yeah,
that also, my inner male. like, because sometimes when we follow a spiritual path, um, that we stop being being able to access different parts of ourselves that we think are not godly or holy or
Yeah.
somehow not okay on the spiritual path.
Yeah. And she is going through a divorce.
Okay, so there's that. Okay, so that makes a total ton of sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then if she is going through a divorce, then, and she associates, like, if somehow becoming a chaplain is a way of, it's her path forward, but she associates that path with being single because it's something that she's doing as a result of getting a divorce. It's like how she's expressing her
Mhm.
freedom after the divorce. Then the being a chaplain would be connected to not, not finding intimacy again.
Mhm.
Like, and
Yeah.
then I would be careful, if that were me, to make sure that I wasn't trying to escape into spirituality as a way of not being available to intimacy anymore.
Yeah. Or perhaps even doing that inner work that you mentioned where it's
Mhm.
like, I'm good with me, now I'm looking for what I want. Like
Yeah.
I can be intimate if I choose to. It's like, well, how am I feeling inside? And then what do I want? So,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
mean, like dating, we all know dating's got its own thing going on. So
Yes, definitely. Dating has its
it's
own thing going.
exciting and it's all the things. It's all
Yes, it is. It
all
is.
the things.
It's all the things. It really
Yeah.
is. Boy, this one way to learn a lot about yourself is through dating and relationships in general.
Yes, definitely. Okay, I'm really glad you asked that, Annette. Thank you. Okay, um, I missed one of Alicia's, so I'm going to ask that. She's saying so Alicia is saying, that reminds me that I have a giant home that I travel to. It has antique furniture and is surrounded by water. Sometimes there's sharks in the water. I also have to rearrange the furniture, and there's always a closet full of clothes and diet meals. LOL. I have so much fun moving the furniture. I love dreams.
Diet meals, she said. That's so interesting. Okay,
Well,
so
she
like
did. She
healthy.
did lose a bunch of weight,
Okay,
so
so like healthy meals.
yeah, I think
Or,
so.
yeah. Well, homes are us. They're like our psyches. So a big home is like our big psyche, our psyche that we're exploring, but it's surrounded by sharks. So that feels protective to me. Like protecting her, like a self protective, and it's like her place that she gets to go to. If she likes antiques, are the antiques something that she likes? Does that feel good to her? I mean, it's someone else, sometimes in some dream an antique could mean something from the past, maybe even from like a past life or something, but this feels like she likes antiques, and the closets are full of clothes. It's kind of like a really great sort of self-discovery dream. Like, I'm comfortable with myself.
She's had this dream
This is
since she
my
was
home. Like, I have a home inside of myself, and this is the image of it.
yeah.
Um,
She's had it since she was in her 20s. The house always has a new addition, and she says, not really. I think about the antiques, like liking the antiques.
she doesn't like them, or
I don't think she likes the antiques. I think
oh,
that
she
that
doesn't
means
like them. Okay, well then that would mean to me, if she doesn't like the antiques, then, and she's had this since her 20s, and there's always a new addition. So there is always a new addition to ourselves. There is always like something new to explore in ourselves. But if the antiques are from the past, or like some part of ourselves that's from the past, that is antiquated, that is something that no longer serves us, but she's moving around the furniture, so it's kind of like she's working with that energy, exploring it, trying to figure out, how do I integrate this, whatever this is from my past, into who I currently am.
yeah.
um,
Until she said no, I make it work.
she makes it work, like,
I don't know. I got a little lost
oh,
with the
okay.
delay of what that means. Um, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I mean, Alicia, you have to let us know what your thoughts are on that. Um, yeah, I like it. I like how, it's so great to have that knowledge of like, oh, the house is me. Oh, the
Yeah.
furniture. She makes the furniture work.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Like, if those are, and like, parts of herself from her past, like, she's finding some way to integrate her past into her present.
Yeah.
Right.
She says it makes total sense.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, beautiful. Well, I just want to thank you so much for sharing like just such depth. I feel like we got to go. It really, to me, it just feels like, I don't know, like going for like the best run or like the best meditation or the best whatever to go deep like this. It just feels amazing. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You're getting lots of thanks here. You know, I know there's different ways to get in touch with you, and you have like a free, I don't know, something you're offering everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So the first 3 people who contact me, I'll give them a free half-hour session. And you can write me at thenightisyoung@gmail.com. That's the night is young, Jung. Or go to my website, thenightisyoung.com, and just fill out the contact form. Can also, I have a Facebook page, The Night is Young. I have the Night is Young Dream Discussion Group, where if you join that group, you can just discuss your dreams just the way that we are now. And there's lots of people there to weigh in besides me. And my Instagram page is The Night is Young Dream Guide. And you can DM me there too. So
Yeah, well, thank you. That's such a really generous offer, those free offers. And I will have you post that in our group after this so we can just remember. I put your Gmail in the comments here, but that way we'll just have, oh, and we have 108 comments. I kind of 108, what a nice number.
Yeah. The sacred number, 108 is a sacred number. So
yeah, I know, right? I know. Yeah, I noticed that there was an 88 and then the 108. So yeah, thank you so much. Is there anything, like any tidbit just for us as we continue to explore our own dream world, just to have us go off into the night with?
I would say just be open. Be open to what your dreams have to say, to be open to having dreams, and to be open to what your dreams have to share with you. And don't dismiss your dreams. Even the smallest dream can have something really important to offer you. Yeah.
That's really lovely. I love that. Thank you. I feel like I'm going to start to pay attention more to mine too. Even like you, I'm glad you mentioned that. Even like the seemingly small ones are the ones that just seem less significant.
Yeah, that they still, and when you pay more attention to your dreams, they start arriving more. I mean, more dreams will arrive as you pay attention to them, because it's almost like the unconscious says, "Oh, someone's paying attention to me. I think I'll just keep, start sending more messages." So don't be surprised if when you start doing dream work, that happens.
Just like intuition, exactly like intuition.
Exactly. You get more intuitive hits as you tap in.
Exactly. Thank you so much. We adore you. We're so glad you've been here with us. Really.
Well, this is wonderful. This is fantastic. I absolutely love this. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You don't have to go yet. I just need to take this off of